And we are live with John Gucci Foley. John, how are you?
Hey, Bill, I'm glad to be here. You can see I'm wearing a shirt,
You are
and
so glad to be here.
we'll talk more about it. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet, man. My honor. So I don't know if you remember when we met,
On an
but
airplane, right?
we met on an airplane, which is ironic, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Do you
sitting there
remember
and
where we were flying from?
I really don't.
It was CLT to LAX.
Okay, that makes sense. My company is based in Charlotte, and LAX is my largest major airport near Ventura County. So that makes sense.
And now, truth to be told, for your audience, is that I didn't remember that, but my team did. I said, "Hey,
Nice.
tell me about it." And so it's good to have a good team around you, right?
Well, that's a really great point. I mean, that's perfectly illustrative of the exact kind of thing that I want to pull out of you. So yeah, here's my story. Let me do the setup. I told you I'm going to go complete fanboy geek on you here. Like you can see the P-51 behind me.
Yeah.
I was a pilot, a civilian pilot in a former life. I used to sell airplanes for Beechcraft West at the Van Nuys Airport. Flew
Beautiful.
every day. And I can remember as a, like, you're going to cringe as I tell you this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was probably 22 years old. I'm flying a Bonanza, which is a 285 horsepower, normally aspirated, single engine, retractable gear, complex aircraft, nothing compared to the F 18. But I thought I was in an F 18. And I remember taking off out of Van Nuys. You can probably see this coming. I rotate, suck up the gear, hold the nose down, wait till I get to the end of the runway and yank back on the stick for a Blue Angel takeoff, right? Only to realize later that, like, you're an idiot. Like, you're an idiot in a single engine airplane. If that engine quit, you had one activity you were going to be involved in, and the gear's already up. Like, what are you doing?
Well, sometimes you got to hang it out, and
Kind of did.
that's called the low transition high performance climb in the Blue Angels, and I did that when I was number 6. That was my position. Yeah.
Well, buddy, that's the thing that has me so enamored with you, because my wife will tell you that, out here in Ventura County where I live, it's Point Magoo, right? So
Yeah.
at Magoo, man, when we have a chance to get out there and get there early and park early, you know how it is. If you're going to do it, from my perspective, not from yours, you're going to get there early. You're going to get the good seats. You're going to pay a little extra. You're going to get positioned, and then I'm going to be there with my awesome camera with the telephoto lens, John, to get all the great shots. So I am a complete fanboy on this, and to be able to talk to you is just outstanding. And so the last thing I have to explain to people is on the airplane. So I'm sitting there and I just glance up and I see that shirt, like you're wearing that shirt
Okay.
and that bald head and that physique, man. You're like unmistakable, right? So later I I don't know. I think I was going to the head, and as I walked past you, I tapped you on the shoulder, and you're reading, and I feel horrible like interrupting you, but it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not going to miss this opportunity. I want to say hello to John. So that's where it all started. I think I gave you a card. You turned me on to your assistant, and that's where the dialogue began. And here we are.
I love it. Hey, but how did you recognize me? How did you know what I looked like? Why? I mean, I'm just a
I've
sitting on an
I've seen
airplane.
your stuff. I didn't have the book then, but I do
Okay.
now, and I've just seen your stuff. I mean, I'm a fan of the blues. I am a fan of motivational speakers, anything to do in self-improvement. And so I
Yeah.
knew of you. I've never heard you. I had seen bits and pieces of your work. And so
Oh,
that
wow.
that was the context.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, I'm glad we connected, and actually, I am thrilled to be here talking to you and your audience. And anything I could share to help you would be great.
Well, thank you, man. You will, I can tell you that. So my world, such as it is 30 years in the mortgage and the real estate industry. That's my space, John.
Okay.
And I recently came to work for a company called Movement Mortgage, based out of Charlotte. We're the sixth largest lender in the country, and
Congrats.
pretty amazing company. Much is very similar to your foundation. We have a very strong foundation where we do tons of charitable work, like to the tune of 200 million last year. It's it's
Wow.
it's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's amazing. And you'll appreciate this as a football player. Our CEO, Casey Crawford, played for the Tampa Bay Bucks in a Super
Uh,
Bowl. And when he retired from football, because you played for the midshipmen, right?
yes, I
Defensive
did.
back.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
When he retired from the NFL, he got into real estate, started looking at the mortgage industry, and didn't like what he was seeing, and started a mortgage company. I want you to think about this because you're also, a businessman with an MBA. You'll appreciate this. He started this company at the end of the crash, like the market crash, in the mortgage industry, John. We had a website called
2008, right?
Yes, 2009 is when this happened, but it was
2009.
the Implodometer. It was a website where you would watch every day another mortgage company that was closing.
Wow.
And so in the midst all of that, talk about counterintuitive, right? He opened a mortgage company, and now we're the 6th largest company in the country, and it's quite a story, man. So between, football and philanthropy and achievement and excellence, there's just, you'll see nothing but parallels here. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you, man. So John, I want to start with people who are not, completely amazed by the Blue Angels like I am. I cannot tell you, it is that was my number 2 item on my bucket list, was a ride in a P-51. And I had a group of clients do that for me in Man of War out here at the, what do they call it? Used to be Confederate Air Force. It is now the,
I'm
because
trying
that's
to
not
think.
politically
It's
correct.
just south of Orlando, right?
No, this one's here actually in Camarillo in Southern California, very close to, I mean, it may have been there, but now it's out here in Camarillo, very close to Magoo. But yeah, dude, that was about a year and a half ago, and it was unbelievable, like an unbelievable experience for me. And once the guy found out that I was a pilot, he's like, "Oh, well, we're going to have some fun." And we did. And that 45-minute trip was about an hour and a half. But number 1 on my bucket list, John, number one is a ride with the Blues. And so my hope is, and maybe you're my door to this, my hope is the fact that my book, White Collar Warrior, which was written about, what I tried to do is find the parallels between the best that our military produces, the American military produces, and business.
It's great.
And my hope is that somehow there's a connection there. Like, what do you guys call them? Is it like a community influencer or something?
Yes,
when you
exactly.
threw somebody in the back.
Yeah. And the key here, I'll just give you straight up the key. It's not who you are, it's who's going to cover it, right? It's about marketing and publicity.
That makes sense.
There you go.
Bet.
So that's what you want to show, is that by flying you, the image of the Blues and the exposure would go up.
Right. Yeah. Well, if that's going to happen, it's going to happen because of social, not because I'm going to have, CNBC there. So anyway, I'm thrilled to have you here, but I want other people to understand why this is so exciting to me. And, for those of you that are not familiar with the Blues, like, where have you been? But, the preeminent U.S. military, I'm sorry, what do you call it? Flight demonstration
squad.
Yep. I realize Air Force will push back on that, but I'm leaning in on Navy because my brother-in-law flew in the Navy, and there you go. But there's just nothing like it, John. And so at some point you decided that there was more that you could do with this experience. As a matter of fact, I think you said in the book, in the very beginning, you said what began as a pursuit of aviation mastery, and this is aviation mastery, eventually became the pursuit of mastery itself.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, because how many Blue Angels pilots have there ever been since 1946?
Well, I think when I wrote the book, which is only a few years ago, there was like 256 or something. We're probably at about 270 now. But to answer your question is, that's the big aha. As a boy, I was 12 years old, and my dad took me to an air show. I'll never forget this day. I look up in the sky and I see these 6 magnificent blue jets. And I remember turning to my dad saying, "Dad, I'm going to do that." Right?
Really?
Yeah. And it was a dream, but it wasn't like, I hope to do that. It's kind of cool to do that. I just said, man, I'm going to do that. And then, like anything, you got to come up with a plan, right? And my plan was try to go to the academies. I got rejected 3 times. They said I was not physically qualified. Eventually got over that hurdle and started the path of flying jets and flying off of carriers, right? Because that's the pathway to becoming a Blue Angel. Then an instructor pilot, because as the Blues, it's not enough just to have your mastery of the aircraft. That is something that takes time, and you develop that. But we want people who are then going to be able to teach others. If you think
Yeah.
about the essence of this podcast, hopefully others are learning from this, right? So the
Right.
key is that we want to be able to share information in a way that is meaningful to them. And that's what I mean by, it's not so much about the flying anymore. I don't need to fly anymore. What I'd
Yep.
rather do is use those experiences to help others. And specifically the mortgage business, financial services, it really doesn't matter. There's some key lessons that I learned in the Blue Angels at an extreme level, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and this is the last thing, Bill, on this point.
Yeah.
There's fundamentals in any organization, right? Fundamentals in football. I just worked with Alabama and Nick Saban. And by the
Nice.
way, we're going to win another national championship, I think. But
You're right.
Here is that there's fundamentals that are always there, but there's also slight differences
Right.
that elite do. And that's what I like to unpack.
Man, you don't even know how much I love that. I mean, one of the things that I've learned as a coach, so we figured out you're one of the only guys who will appreciate this. When I talk about hours, I've been in this coach's chair for about 18,000 hours. So you know what that means as a pilot, right? Like as a pilot, I have about 1,000 hours. You have what, 25,000? Yeah.
No.
I
only got about 3,500, but they're all tactical fighters.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, those are quality hours for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I guess you're not flying around the continent, commercially, right? So you're
the average sortie is
you're out on a mission. Yeah.
Yeah. The average sortie is less than an hour.
So that's amazing, man. That is truly amazing. So anyway, 18,000 hours in the coach's chair, 20 years that I've been doing this, John. And I think about the people that perform at the very highest level in business, in the people that I've been coaching.
Yeah.
And almost to a person, there was someplace in their past where they may not have had a Blue Angels experience, but maybe they excelled in scholastics or a musical instrument or martial arts or sports, but someplace young. And so I want you to hear this. If you're a parent right now, like listen to this, because that discipline, those things that are learned early on serve us well later in life. And so what I'm curious about for you, like there you were playing football, flying, vision of being with the Blues, all of that coming together. Then you had that career with the Blue Angels, which was how long? How long did that last?
For me, it was 3 years. And that's as long as you can be on the Blues. It's normally 2 years.
That's fantastic, man. I love that even more. That's you stole a year. Like, well done. That's really well done.
Well, the way it started is I actually got to be the narrator my first year when we selected pilots.
Very cool.
And that was great because that's actually, you're really the operations kind of person on the ground.
Nice.
So you get to learn not just about the flying, but in a business context, what does it take to put on an air show, the safety, the operations side.
So good. So, and your degree is in mechanical engineering, right? So
it is.
You're kind of wired that way anyway. Like you would see it from an ops perspective, right?
Yeah. I think, what's interesting is I love operations, but I also love the creativity. I love inventing new maneuvers. We did that on the Blue Angels. My year, we put in 3, which is hard to do, man. So innovation.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Innovation under change is really hard. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Okay, so now I got to stop there because and this is what I was telling somebody the other day about interviewing. I said, and you know this because you've got your own podcast and you've been on so many different shows, but one of the things that people struggle with in interviewing is they have a linear series of questions. And so they'll hear you answer, but then they have to get to the next question. And instead of reacting to what you just said.
Right.
So I am so going to react to what you just said. Here's where we are at the time that you and I are recording this, which is just before Christmas, 2021. A lot of people will be hearing this in the beginning of the year, 2022. Here's the conversation. And John, you probably know this, but whoever you're working with in financial services, professionally or personally, if you've refied, if you're thinking about buying a piece of property, you probably know that there's
11 homes right now.
Hello, exactly.
4 apartments, and I've got a lot of investments in some other mutual investments. So I'm in the real estate. Yeah.
Good for you. Well, you are invested. Well done. So you would know that, we have been in a low interest rate environment. I mean, if we're honest, we've been in a low interest rate environment since 2010.
Yeah.
I was selling airplanes to people who didn't need them for tax advantages at 14%. I mean, it was stupid, right? Back in the 80s. But now suddenly we're looking at a market that is evolving a little bit, where there's going to be a stronger purchase market, is what all the prognosticators are saying for 2022. Little less refi demand, because rates, we're in an inflationary environment right now. We're going to start to see rates more than likely tick up a little bit. And so everybody's sort of thinking, okay, I like, game on, I'm going to have to adjust my game a little bit. So to your point, when you're innovating and you're creating brand new maneuvers, that's got to be unbelievable under the pressure of a show schedule that you've got. So you have a limited amount of time. There's only so much the airplane can do. And, from chandelles to rolls to the diamond formation and what did you call it when you guys come at each other?
Well, the opposing MRT,
the
opposing knife edge,
right. But I mean, there's only so much stuff that you can do. So take me to the psychology of that. That's interesting. Like, how did you even approach that with all of that pressure on you?
Well, it's great. And good point about, we were already had a show, right? So this idea of, you're in business, you're operating in a certain way, right? And someone comes up and says, hey, we want a new product. And you're like, well, okay, you still have to fly the old airplane while you're building the new airplane, right? And so the key, the way it works on the Blues is you're constantly moving up in the Blue Angels. So when I said I was number 7, the narrator, I then went to the opposing solo, which is number 6. Then you become the lead solo and the operations officer. And in that process, you're training others. So we're in El Centro, California. It's in January through March. That's our winter training. And, near you guys, right?
Very.
Thumper, my number 6 at the year, was very, very good stick, but also very, very sharp. And we quickly were able to train him up to a level of mastery, really, in the jet, right? And so that gave me a little time as the coach, as you would like to say. And we were able then to say, okay, now that we've mastered what we already are doing, because that's important, right? Is there something else? How can we push the envelope? How can we take it to the next level? And of course, in aviation, the first thing is safety. You got to make it safe. It's easy to do something stupid. It's easy to kill yourself. It's easy in business to run yourself out of business. I mean, that's not hard, right? What's hard is to push it to the limit and then be able to come back and then be able to scale it, right? And that's the key. So to answer your question is, we actually put in 1992, that's how long it's been since I was on the Blues. You've seen the show a lot. That where the maneuver where a jet goes by really slow, standing on its tail. We call it
for sure,
triangle of attack. Okay, so this is, I'll put you in the seat and your listeners. It's 1991. The air show, the F-18 is one of the few airplanes that can do this. The F-16s with the Thunderbirds could do it, and then the Russians and the MiG-29. And that's it, because it's hard to do this. And every team only did it with one airplane, and then the Russians had an engine failure, and they lost an airplane, and so they quit doing it. And so it was just us and the Thunderbirds. And so Thumper and I are sitting there going, hey, what if we actually did this in formation? What if we took not one airplane, 2, and put them line abreast? Okay. Now, line abreast is the hardest way to fly, because now you're looking off to your wing.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So the whole thing was, no one had ever done this. So it's one thing to put in a new maneuver, but one that no one had ever done. And the first thing I needed to do was to test it. Is it safe? So we went through a testing protocol, got up at altitude, pull engines back, determined could it be done. The real issue was the yaw, because if you lost an inboard engine, control the yaw.
That makes sense.
So the bottom line is, we proved it was safe, but that's not enough, right? So then we had to actually practice it and prove that we could replicate it time in and time out and train somebody else. And we proved that. And then here's the hardest part of any innovation, and I'll just leave it at this, is, again, that's not enough. What's the hardest part is getting people to change, getting your teammates.
Oh my goodness. Just stop for a second. For anybody watching or listening right now, can I hear an amen? Like, of course, that is the single hardest thing to do, is to get people to change.
And even our team members, the Diamond, they have in a Blue Angel Air Show, it's the Diamond, the 4 jets do a maneuver, then the solos, and the Diamond, and the solos. So there's a lot of coordination that has to occur, like in any business, right? And they had already had their what we would call rendezvous already scripted out, and we were going to require them to change. And most people don't want to. My team said, yeah, we can change, because of the higher purpose, which is to do a more dynamic and powerful air show. So the bottom line was, we put that maneuver in 1992. Here's the cool part. It's still in the Blue Angels today. This
That
is,
is so cool, man.
2021. But here's even cooler. No other team has been able to replicate it. Nobody.
Wow.
Thunderbirds can't. The Russians can't. I go back and I teach the Blues. I wrote the manual on this, and that's what I call sustained innovation.
That's a beautiful term. That's a beautiful term, and it's one that I will use again. You know, I would be making notes, but I'm going to be watching this again when we're done, and that's when I'll make my notes. But man, if you're watching or listening to this right now and you're a leader, I really want you to jot that term down, sustained innovation, because that's going to be, you know, you could have a one season hit. You could be a one hit wonder and, you know, music or whatever. But man, sustained innovation is when something becomes like a part of the program. And that's what you're saying. That now has become a part of the program. This is part of your legacy, right?
Yes. Well, what's interesting, we had our 75th anniversary of the Blue Angels, which was talk about being cool to be around the older guys. And
you were on your way out here for that when I saw you, I think, right?
Oh,
Wasn't that out here at the beach?
Yeah, Pensacola.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That's in fact, I was coming back from that area.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's funny because I could talk to the people who came 20 years before me, and it's, you know, they're sitting like, oh yeah, we tried this maneuver. Oh, it didn't work. You know, we're all going back and forth and stuff. But what's interesting about, and since we're on innovation, just real quick, there's some maneuvers that didn't work. So that year, Thumper and I, we decided we would do the takeoffs where 6 would do the low transition, high performance climb, which you did in near Bonanza. 5 does a dirty roll with the gear down rolls, and they were always done individually. And again, I said to Thumper, I said, hey, what if we do this? You hold it low to the ground. I'll roll over your aircraft. Then when I say ready, brake, you pull up, I'll pull left, and let's try it. So we did. Well, the crash crew thought we crashed. I mean, it was so cool.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, they launched the trucks, and so Thumper and I are going, this is the best maneuver ever. It looks like we crashed, and we didn't. We did something cool. Well, here's the mistake: we forgot to tell the boss.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And the boss is like, no. Well, here's the cool part. It took 10 years, and now it's part of the Blue Angel Air Show again.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So that is a fantastic story. That's going to be a little micro content that we'll pull out of this interview, because that's the kind of story that I just think will sit with people. Like they'll remember that. So John, I want to transition to, you know, early on in the book here on page 20, and then again, actually on the back of the book, you know, is this diagram, right, of the Diamond Performance Framework. Now you created that. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So I want people to just see this. I mean, this is not a fancy graphic I'm holding up here, right? But I just want them to see this. Yeah. Would you mind just explaining this a little bit to us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what's important in business and life is you need a framework, you need a path. Now, even before that has to become the inspiration. And by the way, I like to define inspiration as breathing life into, right? Breathing life into others, right? But to answer your question was, you know, of course, we had some great stories to tell. I learned a lot on the Blue Angels. I then went to Stanford Business School, worked in venture capital. And for 20 years now, we've been working with the most world-class companies around the world. And so I started to try to figure out, how can we translate this into any aspect of business or life? And so what that diagram, where its essence was, it came from a strategic management theory class I had in Stanford. And we all know this: vision, plan, execute, feedback loop, right?
Sure.
So all companies do that. What's a vision? Come up with a plan, execute on a plan. Hopefully you have a feedback loop, which, by the way, is the weakest link in 99% of the organization. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I did is I said, okay, that's great. That's what the best do. But then how did the best even get better? What did the elite of the elite do?
Yep.
And so if you notice, the very first facet of that performance framework is belief levels.
Right.
See, we need to start with beliefs, because it's not enough to have a vision. It's great to have a vision. You got to get people to be committed and bought in, just like your podcast here, all in, right? I mean, how am I all in? So it's about beliefs, and some beliefs are limiting. Those are fear-based. They'll hold us back. Liberating ones are more opportunity. Then I take you into the next facet, which is basically you have to have awareness. Then you go into the brief. To me, the brief is about preparation and focus. So, you know, how did you get up this morning? How did you wake up? What's your routine? What do you do as a company? What are those processes, those procedures? And I do it at an elite level of how you focus your mind. Then I take you into what I call the center point. That's in the middle of that diagram. This is an alignment piece. We all know in business, you got to connect, align and commit. So we're connected. Now we got to get people aligned. The commitment piece is in the execution. And that's
Right.
that third piece, which I call trust contracts. I think you got to execute through high trust. And then the fourth facet, and then we'll wrap it up, is the most important, and that's the debrief. And that's what's unique about how the Blue Angels debrief. I mean, a lot of people understand the concept of debrief. Military does this extremely well. The Blue Angels do it different than anything. And there's a unique piece to it, which I call glad to be here. And that is, it's not just about learning and what I could do better and all that. Of course we do that. We turn it into a celebration. If we turn it into a leadership event, we turn it into appreciation and gratitude. And that sets up and reinforces belief levels. Now you get the spiraling up process of elite performance. So that's the framework. Once you get that, you can do anything.
So I love what you just explained, but even more fundamentally, what I love, John, is your energy. I mean, I know you've heard this a million times, but I got to just call it out. Like, dude, you are fired up. You are fired up, and you are so clearly glad to be here. And I love that. And I know there's a section in the book on gratitude, which I'm a huge believer in as a 3-time cancer survivor and a heart attack. Like, oh, dude, every day's a gift. I mean, I just squeeze the joy out of every single day, right? I love it. And I know that you appreciate that as well, because we both know that aviation in general is very unforgiving. When you're flying at 400 to 500 miles an hour, 18 inches apart, it's much less forgiving. And so I know you have to have developed that attitude, and that's got to be part of the whole glad to be here, right? I mean, is it not we may as well go there at this point. Can you unpack that a bit?
Let's go there, because first off, the little hairs started standing up on the back of my neck. I started getting goosebumps again when you were talking about 18 inches, because I remember what that feels like, right? It's visceral.
I can't even imagine, man. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, here's the cool part. Bill, you realize 18 inches from another jet at 500 miles per hour, you can actually see the cracks in the paint, of the aircraft next to you. Yeah. Wow. And you're moving.
Rivets. You can see rivets. Sometimes.
Yeah. So, you are moving. It's constant improvement. But, to get to that level took a lot of practice and training. It was actually, I reversed engineered what worked on the Blue Angels into business. I said, holy cow, wait a minute. We did certain things on the team that, were not only aviation oriented, but really more about teamwork and trust and building that. And I said, how can we reverse engineer that into the civilian world? And so that's part of that framework. And you hit the key differentiator, and that's where we'll go, is this glad to be here. See, glad to be here sometimes meant what you're saying. You're just glad to be alive. Yeah. I mean, I had those days, okay? 3-time cancer survivor for you, the heart attack, but I had flying days where you kissed the ground. I mean, you were like, I don't know. I mean, there was those moments. There's always a gap between the stimulus and response. And, and the gaps that I felt are ones where you don't know if you're going to live or not.
I'll bet, man.
That's a weird gap. Let me tell you, it's not a place you want to go. I don't suggest it. I never try to put myself into these positions. But when you're in those gaps of, I don't know if I'm going to live or die. Time slows down. It's a very interesting, situation. But once you survive it, then, maybe that's why I'm so just full of joy, is you realize that, guess what? Ice cream tastes better. The grass is greener.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. You just feel life is just so precious. So to answer your question, glad to be here is an ethos. Okay. Yeah. It's not just appreciation for being alive. It goes well beyond that. To me, glad to be here means it's a way of life, and it combines operational excellence, meaning let's continue to get better. I mean, performance and this idea of increasing, that's innate in human beings, but you add to it appreciation, gratitude. You add to it the chemistry of what it feels like when you're compassionate and empathetic. All of a sudden, that to me is elite high performance.
Yeah, I'm just processing as I'm listening to you. I want to react in real time, but I want to process it a bit, because first of all, I love that you described it as an ethos. The very first time I think I really understood that term was when I was interviewing Navy SEALs for my book, and I read their ethos, right? Like,
they got a great one.
That, this is not a common man, right? This is something different.
Right.
Ethos is missing in our society a lot right now. And so the more that we can shine a light on that, right, and the importance of that, I think that's huge. As I've told you, just send me the link to the site. I'm in Excel. I will wear that shirt and I will explain it to as many people as I
Well,
possibly
here
can
you go. It's
proudly.
johnfoleyinc.com, johnfoleyinc.com. Go to the store button, but you don't need to do that. We're gonna send you one. Okay.
That's
Sugar, who
very
you've been,
kind.
yeah,
That's
we'll
very kind,
send
but I
that to you.
want
But
people to
anybody
know
else
where
who's
to
listening can
go.
get
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you've brought it up, and let me just do this now. So this book, you guys, I have only started it and scanned it, and you can kind of see my notes and post-its in there because that's how I read. I'll then go through it over the holiday and read it in its entirety.
Okay.
You need to order this book today, and as a matter of fact, you need to order 10 copies, and here's why. It for the people that I coach, John, they're in an industry where they have referral partners, right? So if
Oh,
I'm a mortgage
perfect.
lender, I have multiple realtors that I work with.
Of
If I'm a
course.
realtor, I have other agents that I work with, or builders or mortgage lenders. Like, you guys, this is a book you're going to want to gift to each other. And the beauty of this is that's not, I know that I learned this as a first time author, John. You probably know the same thing. We're a country of book purchasers, but
Yeah.
not book
Agreed.
readers. This, I can tell you, is an easy read. What I love about this is you wrote this the way that you talk. And
Mm.
so I'm listening to you now and I'm thinking this is exactly what I was reading in the book, which means it's a fun read. It's a relatively short read. It's not going to take you a long time.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to end up as fired up as John is. So I want you to buy 10 copies, and so that I drive them to the right place. Do you want them at the website, or is Amazon, Barnes and Noble just as good?
It's all just as good. The website, you can get not only probably better pricing, but we can throw in some extra stuff.
Then
I've got
that's
to
what I
break.
would do.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
got to
would do,
break
you
into
guys.
weak barriers and all that kind of stuff. But
You bet.
whatever is the easiest for
Well,
people.
I appreciate that, man. And we're going to put the link in the show notes down below, so it'll make it really easy for everybody to get there. But you just need this stuff, you guys. Get yourself a shirt, grab 10 copies of the book, gift them to people. They're going to be glad that they got it, and they're going to be glad to be here because they had this experience. Imagine being able to talk to the guy that was up there at that air show years later, having processed it and brought it now down into a recipe and a formula that we can all learn from. Like, are you kidding me? Come on. Of course you need a copy of that book. What else have you got going on, John? What, I know you do a lot of keynotes.
Yeah.
I assume the website is the place for them to go to learn more or to get some information about hiring you as a speaker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a full team. I've got a salesperson. I got production people. We have marketing people. We have the ability to create, a podcast. The keys here is yeah, I've been out there. What's nice is for 2 decades now, Bill, in not
That's
only the keynote
fantastic.
speaking way, which is any big event, any big sales organization or kickoff event. But you know what we're seeing now because of COVID, we had to adapt just like you, right?
You bet.
We had to switch to virtual, and that was a surprise. So we had a multi-million-dollar keynote speaking business, and all of a sudden it's like, man, you got to reinvent yourself,
Right.
and we did. We were able, so now there's a lot of virtual team building events that we do, but also the training side. And that's why the book's so important is how do you actually activate what you just talked about,
Yeah.
right? And so absolutely, we're finding that right now we're working a lot in the healthcare space because you can imagine
Oh,
the
I can't
challenges.
imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot in financial services because they're always trying to take it to the next level. Mercedes-Benz, manufacturing, Google technology, all the big ones, but also, the mid-sized companies. That's why, what your description of what you guys do at Movement it is amazing. It's perfect. It's for people who are trying to take their company just to the next level.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so I'm, as the gray-haired guy, I'm surrounded by 40-year-olds, it seems like, but my job is to challenge and to question and to say, wait a minute, we did that and it didn't work. And what about this? And
Yeah.
so that's why this is the kind of thing that just appeals to me so much, John, and your message, the way that you deliver it, the way that you package it. I do have to tell you, man, everything you do is first class. Your website is first class,
Thank
your
you.
videos, your podcast, the book, the way you've shown up here. I'm not surprised, of course, but everything you do is first class. And it's just been a pleasure hanging out with you, brother.
Man, Bill, and I want to say thank you because I know you're impacting a lot of people. The
Thanks,
people on
man.
this call, on this podcast,
Appreciate it.
you're making a big difference. And to me, that's the essence of what glad to be here means is make a difference in someone else's life. Have a purpose larger than yourself. You know, as we're signing off here, I'm thinking the ethos that allows the Navy SEALs, the Blue Angels, or any great company is to have a purpose larger than self. It's not enough just to have a purpose, right? We all need to have a purpose. But when that purpose is larger than self, this is the result you get, right? And the giving back, the making a difference in people's lives. And thank you, Bill, for what you're doing, because you're changing lives.
Buddy, it is my pleasure. Thank you for that. It's just, look, all I do is I just tee up great ideas. I feel like I'm a conduit to share great ideas. And the cool thing about what Movement is doing right now, John, just so that you know, and there's a lot of people that probably never heard this, is, we have built now, I think, three charter schools in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're getting ready to break ground to build more in Atlanta and Houston. And we have a stated goal, to build 100 by 2020. So the idea of doing this is to break a cycle of generational poverty in these areas where it just becomes it is a cycle of generational poverty. And these schools have test scores that are above the average. They're actually profitable, which is unbelievable. And we have students and teachers that show up, and if they knew it, they would be saying, I am glad to be here, because it's a completely different environment. And, there's a lot of mortgage companies, man, where all it is it's just, how big a jet, how big a yacht, how big a house. We're wired a little differently. We want to give back, and it's about loving and valuing people and reinvesting. So I know that your foundation is important to you, and I love that you give a portion of the proceeds of all of your talks back, and you encourage the client to do the same. So man, I mean, I think that's why we're here, isn't it? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Well, it is. And I love the charter school thing. I just spoke to about 200 of charter school presidents and principals.
Really?
And it happened, I think it was South Carolina, because to see the difference that the charter schools are making.
Oh my goodness.
Right. But it's all schools. I also just last week was with 2,500 kids in the public school system. We had this huge auditorium. We brought in these big jumbo screens. Yeah, and it was fun to make a difference, not just in the corporate world, but in the youth.
Oh, dude, I love that you're doing it. So I got to ask for the money shot. Like, is the helmet nearby? I got to see the helmet, man.
I'm glad you mentioned it. I got a bunch behind me, right? Some of those are my fighter pilot helmets. Some of those are my football helmets. But here's the Blue Angel helmet.
Come on.
All right.
Come on.
And look
gold
at some
helmet.
First off, gold visor, right, Bill?
Yep.
I like there's a metaphor here. It's in the book too. These gold visors allow you to look directly in the light and not blink. I think that's a pretty cool leadership metaphor.
Come on. Come on.
When the heat's on, when the pressure's on, and when you're flying upside down through the sun and all that kind of stuff. But also the cool part is, see the back there? So that's the crest.
Yep.
And we don't call it a logo, we call it a crest. And it means something. And you're not allowed to wear that unless you're a Blue Angel, of course, right? But the key is that you got to earn the right. And then there's the nickname Gucci. All fighter pilots, we get call signs. And let me tell you, I didn't like Gucci, and that's why it stuck. I didn't pick it. I wore a thin black leather tie one day, and they're like, "What is that?" But we got Top Gun Maverick coming out, right? And
absolutely.
It's gonna be
pretty powerful. Yeah. Cannot wait. Well, it has been, I can't even tell you, this is the highlight of probably my month. It has been spectacular hanging out with you, John. I look forward to a continuing relationship. This thing will be up in about a week or so. And I hope that you'll have the opportunity to share it with the folks that matter to you. And we'll certainly be doing it our end. So thank you so much for making the time.
We got lots of social media, and we'll, John Gucci Foley, we'll get this thing out to everybody, and anyone who wants to connect with us, LinkedIn, Instagram, is John Gucci Foley.
It's great. That's the place to go. It'll be in the show notes. Get yourself some books, get a t-shirt, book John. He needs to be speaking to your people, whether it's virtually or live. Like, bring him in. This guy has got the goods. Come on. All right, buddy. I think in aviation we say frequency change approved. So good day. And
Roger that.
Pleasure to hang out, and thank you for your service, John.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.